When your destination is discovery, there are no wrong turns. That's why, at its very core, the new 2025 Lincoln Aviator SUV provides momentum beyond mere transportation. In this thoughtfully crafted and confidence-inspiring SUV, your destination is not about where you can go, but who you can be. Explore more at Lincoln.com. Lincoln and Aviator trademarks afford or its affiliates.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. The holidays are here, and you know what that means? It's time to get your friends and family the gifts they deserve. Take the stress out of shopping with Amazon's great deals and low prices on a huge range of items from toys to tech and much more. Whoever you're gifting for, Amazon has great prices on everything you need this holiday season. Shop early holiday deals now.
Hi, it's Dave here. This is my wife, Kathy.
Hello.
This is The Cinema. It's the podcast where we walk home from the movies. And today we're going to see a movie that we asked you all to vote on Instagram, if you follow us on Instagram, because Kathy and I could not decide on what to see, because I was very much team, let's go see Venom 3. Not because I'm like dying to see that movie, but I just feel like that's a car crash that I'd like to talk about. And you were very much like, I want to see The Apprentice.
Plus I said, we've seen Venom. We've seen a Venom.
We've seen a Venom.
A Smile.
But I've seen a Donald Trump play out for 10 years and I'm sick of it.
Anyway, the listeners were on my side because Smile 2 got 23% of the vote, The Apprentice got 51% of the vote, and Venom 3 got 26% of the vote.
Yes, so the people have spoken, so we're going to go see The Apprentice.
Because unlike Donald Trump, we actually respect election results.
Oh, I like it. Nicely done.
I mean, yes, this was an election.
This political
we are
satire.
president.
Yeah. There is a, we're really good at political satire here.
Yeah,
on
it's
the
our
cinema,
thing.
which is why we are very delighted and grateful to say that we won
Nice
an
segue.
award recently for Best TV and Film Podcast at the Independent Podcast Awards.
That segue doesn't even make sense.
Which were held. I didn't know how to segue to it. We won the Best Segue Award at the event. No, it was we're delighted and grateful to have won it and to have been nominated among so many other great film and TV podcasts who are also friends of ours. So it was slightly awkward at times, but it was a great night. It was Kathy didn't go because she didn't think we'd win.
Well, it was in London, and I was like, well, there's no point in us. Like, I'd love to go, but like the effort of going to London for the night is a lot for something when you don't think you're going to win.
For both of us, because then we've got to deal with babysitters and twice the expense.
And I said, oh, it'd be nice. Dave can go and see the podcast friends, it'd be fun, wish I was going, kind of thing. And then later on I said, God, I must look at my phone to see who won. And there was this message from Dave saying, we won. And loads of people had sent me videos of us winning, so I was buzzing then at home in my pyjamas to realise we'd won. So Dave, thank you for accepting the award on my behalf.
Yes, you're welcome. It was a great event. So I'd just like to shout out to M from Verbal Diorama who put together those awards as a counterpoint to the British Podcast Awards and a lot of other bigger awards ceremonies that are increasingly favouring large brands and corporations and celebrity podcasts.
They're not favouring them. They're just flooded with. There are now so many big podcasts that they can drown out the little ones.
Sure, the industry has shifted.
Right,
yeah.
Well, it's just that there's a greater volume of like very produced celebrity or like corporate podcasts. So what the Independent Podcast Awards was is they're shut out of it.
Yeah.
So therefore, it gives space for independent podcasts. I think that's the difference.
It gives space to acknowledge people who don't have funding and are doing it anyway.
And they're a lot cheaper to enter and all the rest of it. So anyway, thank you very much to the judges of the Independent Podcast Awards, and we are a proudly independent podcast.
Yes, they said we were a warm hug of a podcast, which I'm going to put on my LinkedIn, I think.
Just put on your LinkedIn, shorten it to Dave Corkery, a warm hug.
Although it seems inappropriate that we're hugging all our listeners week in, week out. So apologies. If we're overstepping the boundaries here, you let us know.
This is the perfect segue to the fact that there's one man we ain't hugging on this podcast.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I thought you were going to say one man who knows how to overstep boundaries.
Yeah, that's true.
Both personal and political.
Donald Trump Jr. No, Donald Trump, not Jr. We're talking about you. We're going to try and analyse this as a movie because we're a movie podcast. But we do have to upfront acknowledge our own feelings towards the man we're about to watch a film about. And we're not into him.
Don't like him.
Don't like him for
it's a hot take.
many reasons. very interesting timing for the film to come out. They, not to use the word they like Donald does about the media, but they being Donald Trump's people, tried to block the film coming out. Originally, a pro-Donald Trump guy donated money to this film because he thought it was going to be a pro-Donald Trump film, and then he was horrified to see that the film apparently depicts lots of bad things that are fairly accurately representative of Donald Trump, and they didn't like how that looked. So yeah, let's see, is the movie fake news or not, huh?
Yeah, well, let's just get, I think what Kathy's saying is we chatted about this, we'd like to just get the modern situation and the political stuff out of the way up front, and then we're just going to talk about the movie.
Yeah.
And it's...
as much as we can. It's hard to...
you can't really park all of it.
There's an election on right now where he's running for president, so it's hard to park it.
Look, I mean, we could spend an hour talking about this, but I personally strongly believe, like many others have flagged, that he is one of the greatest threats to democracy in the United States of America, and part of a wave of a threat to democracy across the world, and it's terrifying. And I think he's a disgusting human being who is selfish and egotistical and ruthless and a fascist.
Well, I think General John Kelly, who was Donald Trump's longest serving chief of staff, is probably a more informed man to speak about it than us. And he went public this week with his concerns that the former president met the definition of a fascist. And he declared to the New York Times that Donald Trump would govern like a dictator if allowed. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know, where do you even start? Project 2025, the fact that he's now calling using the phrase the enemy within about the own American people, that he said that he would use the US military against his enemies, like that he's promising that people won't have to vote for him again. Like, he is a classic authoritarian. Anyway.
And we won't labour on it now, but the podcast we've both been enjoying recently is The Rest is Politics US, which is co-hosted by Anthony Scaramucci, a former staff member of Donald Trump, who, along with a lot of other Republicans, is speaking very vocally out. A group of about 30 or so Republicans are working to kind of speak out against Donald Trump based on the fact that they have worked for him and know what he's like.
And he's working with the Harris campaign.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. So I recommend that, Rest is Politics US, if you want to hear more about that, because we are not really the ones to speak about it. Yeah. But now, up front, you know what we think. And now, I'm very interested to see the movie. Saw a great trailer for it. I've heard good things about it.
I don't want to see this at all.
Very interested in it, personally, as someone who is currently hoovering up US election news, because I just can't help myself.
So we should say, from the trailer, it looks like this is Sebastian Stan playing Donald Trump, and Jeremy Strong playing his lawyer and mentor figure, Roy Cohn, who I had never heard of, and was apparently the man that is largely responsible for the Donald Trump we know and love today.
I can't wait to see it, because Jeremy Strong is Kendall from Succession, for anyone who doesn't realise. One of the most intense actors of our time.
Yeah.
Appears very intense in the trailer. So we're going to go in and watch it now. We shall be out when the film's over, and we will talk about The Apprentice.
See you soon.
Bye.
Yes.
Hello, this is Donald Trump from Mr. Cohn. Thank you so much.
Donald who?
1, 2, 3, 4!
Roy Cohn, nice to meet you.
The Roy Cohn, you're brutal.
Guilty as charged.
How do you always win?
There's rules. The first rule is attack, attack, attack.
It's going to be the finest building in the city, maybe the country, in the world.
Rule 2, admit nothing, deny everything.
There's never been anything like this, of this magnitude, this quality. Ooh, cheese balls over here.
What are you doing?
You want one?
No, it looks totally disgusting.
Cheese balls.
Rule 3, no matter what happens, you claim victory and never admit defeat. You have to be willing to do anything to anyone to win. You have a big ass. You gotta work on that.
Your face looked like an orange.
Attack, attack, attack.
Deny everything,
Admit nothing.
Never admit defeat.
Hi, we're back. So we have seen The Apprentice. If it's your first time here at the Cinema, there will be no spoilers for real life things that have happened in real life. Although the film does say up front, as I think biopic films should always say, that this film is based on true events, but some of it has been fictionalized for dramatic purposes.
And we did a quick kind of search after watching the film before hitting record here to kind of, as you always probably should do after you've watched something that is claiming to represent real life, like what is true. So there's a couple of big moments in the film that we'll get into more in spoilers, but according to Business Insider and many other respectable publications, they are true, and there's evidence behind them, right?
And an ironic thing to talk about in an age where truth is consistently being eroded by the subject of this documentary.
Yeah, exactly. And like we will get into it in spoiler street, but just in advance of that, as you may guess, because we're talking about Donald Trump, trigger warning for sexual assault, which will be discussed in spoiler street for this. Right, first of all, Sebastian Fox, is that his name?
Stan.
Sebastian Stan. Sorry, Sebastian Fox is right here. Sebastian Stan is a man who played the Winter Soldier, one of my least favourite characters ever. He played Tommy in the Tommy Lee and Pamela Anderson story.
That's
very
right,
well.
yeah.
He is phenomenal in this film.
Yeah, he is very, very good. I gotta say, do you know what I really liked about his performance was that it's not a caricature, right? It's not the Alec Baldwin SNL thing.
Yeah.
And for a person who is himself a caricature, like Trump himself in real life, his gestures are so iconic and easy to mimic. The way he talks, he is a cartoon. And he's
like a pantomime villain.
Yes, very much so. Because he's also an absurd character. The hair, the orange tan, everything. So he is ripe for an over-the-top performance, and I think Sebastian Stan goes the other way and actually, for the most part, is quite subtle and downplayed. But it's the little things he does. It's incredibly nuanced, like the lips pursing the lips
at all times. I wonder when he stopped filming this movie, did his lips just stay that way? Or like, because you'd imagine after a certain point that would just become how you hold your face. It's incredible. Like, they've styled him like to look like a young Donald Trump, because this is set in the 70s and 80s. So it kind of goes from like around 77 to like 85. That's kind of the timeline. Yeah. So he's not like, you know, the cartoonish Oompa Loompa figure we know today. He's more normal looking. But however,
there is a progression. There is a progression, and by the end,
I'm like, I'm watching Donald Trump.
He's very much, he leans into the. This is to describe what this movie is. I would say this is an origin story of the monster we know today.
And I think it's a very well made film because our protagonist is Donald Trump, and I would say the film actually portrays him relatively sensitively. Like, it's not a hatch job, I would say.
What do you mean by that?
Like,
you mean it's not an attack piece?
At the very beginning of this, we meet a guy who's like seems okay. As he evolves and gets more power, and they say absolute power corrupts and all that, he becomes worse based on, and there's actions portrayed in the film that we know are based on fact. But I would say from the very beginning, it's not like out the gate a horrific portrayal. They actually portray you kind of at the very beginning when he's trying to get up and running with Trump Tower or the hotel or whatever he's doing.
You're kind of on his side.
You're on his side.
Yeah, because
it's that classic.
It's that classic sort of underdog. He's an underdog to start.
Well,
and you kind of want to see him.
He's not a real underdog.
Excuse me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The story in the beginning is portraying him as this guy who has all the odds are against him, and he can't get this hotel made.
He's trying to succeed at something, and he needs help. And in comes Kendall from Succession, the most intense man to ever grace a screen.
And he's great in this. He's so intense, as you said, is the right word. He is, and I don't know the real man, Roy Cohn. I'm interested to learn more about him. But if anything on this is accurate, he's also quite a monster. But they have also, I think they humanized him quite well, and they humanized Donald Trump. Like, Donald Trump in this film becomes a monster. Yeah. I think they acknowledge there's a human being in there with relationships and family.
Yeah.
And they kind of want to chart like how he got to where he is.
Men
and
almost
the film
meet at like different points in their lives, different on the scales of immorality. And then there's a point where they kind of meet in the middle, and then there's a point where Trump just way exceeds his mentor, and the mentor becomes more humane.
Yeah.
as the film shows us, which is really fascinating. But like, if you're a fan of Succession, I think you'll really like this movie, because like, if you think Kendall was intense, like, wait till you see him in this movie. It's like, he's off the charts intense. And then the film's done in a light touch, not intense way, a light touch documentary style. And there's kind of quite dramatic music at points. Yeah, like the camera's often really close to them and kind of moving around, and just very light touch, trying to make it look a bit more realistic than like a glossy film. And
it also, I got a
70s kind of sheen to it.
Yeah, I acknowledge it's done in they shot in it's presented in 4:3, and it's got an 80s grain over it. It looks like it was made on like a handy cam recorder from the 70s or 80s. I don't know what they actually shot it on, or whether that's an effect, but it does sell that whole piece of it. It's like watching archival footage.
It really is. And it just sometimes felt to me like a hint of the way Succession was filmed, partially, I mean, because he's there, and Jeremy Strong, and he's just so intense. But yeah, I think from like the moment this film started till the moment it finished, I was completely gripped. The audience was really into it. You could, like, everyone in the room was really into it. As soon as the lights came up, everyone was like, that was incredible. It's had a relatively small release, so like there's barely any screenings on. So yeah, it's not got a huge release, but we did catch it on a Saturday afternoon. So before we get to spoilers, I just want to say I hugely recommend this film. And if you've election fatigue and Donald Trump fatigue, because this is set around the 70s and 80s, it doesn't get it. It's not. You don't feel like you're watching the news. It's like a really dramatic film, isn't it?
It's a very easy watch. It is. I would say. I really liked this movie. I have many issues with it, and they all stem back to the fact that this is very much a biopic, and that's my least favorite genre of film. But it is on the good side of the biopic end, where they choose to laser in on a specific era or a specific facet of a character.
It's only a certain number of years, but like, it's when a biopic goes from birth to death, you're like, I can't.
Yeah, that's the worst type of thing. But this film commits a lot of the biopic sins, if you ask me, where it presents situations that may or may not be true, but are come across as completely absurd, and I'll talk about them in Spoiler Street. Like I will. For me, it's like when you're watching that Han Solo movie, and they're like, but how somebody gives him the name Han Solo. Do you know, when it's like, where's the origin story of a specific thing? There's many of those moments in this movie where are so on the nose, so hinting at what's to come, that I found them distracting,
but I don't mind it because
and unbearable and unrealistic. Now,
it's not unrealistic though, because I think that majority of stuff in this film happened. So it's not unrealistic to pick and choose the ones that are related to this moment in time when they're deliberately releasing it before an election.
No, but my point is, like, but things happen gradually over time. There's not a scene where one character says to another, do you know what? I can't talk about it. I'll wait till we get to Spoiler Street. But I found there were scenes that just made me roll my eyes. But overall, this is a movie that I think has done a fantastic job of, like, the look of it is great, the performances are fantastic. I actually learned a lot about that period in his life and the people around him that I did not know before. Mm-hmm. Now, again, some of it dramatized, but a lot of it is verifiable.
Yeah.
And I think this is I think this is a success of a movie. And to your point, it is entertaining and gripping, and also quite horrifying.
Oh, it's horrifying.
Yeah, it plays out like a horror film at some points. It has a really eerie synth score.
Yeah.
Towards the end. So it's very good.
It's a villain origin story.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to spoilers now. And before we go to spoilers, we just wanted to quickly mention our Patreon, which is patreon.com/thecinemile. You can sign up for a free 7-day trial, see what you think, and stick around if you fancy after that for just €3 or €4 a month. We review monthly movies, we review TV shows a lot, and there's these brilliant chat functions in there where you can talk about TV, films, video games, all that stuff we talk about over there. And we've just done a big TV episode where we chat without spoilers about Sweet Bobby, the catfish documentary on Netflix, Chaos on Netflix.
Sweet Pea and Sweet Bobby.
Yeah,
We've got
Sweet
all the
Pea,
sweets.
which is a show we're really, really enjoying. Loads of other stuff like Star Trek, Rings of Power, Rivals, which I'm watching, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, and much more. So,
and we got our next batch of Penguin spoiler special episodes covering episodes 4 to 6 coming out next week.
Penguin's coming next week.
And we're watching what? My Best Friend's Wedding?
My Best Friend's Wedding.
For your birthday tomorrow?
I did because of my birthday month, I chose the retro theme this month, and it was 90s rom-coms, and My Best Friend's Wedding won. So we shall be watching that and talking about it now.
Before we get to spoilers for The Apprentice, we're going to take a quick break here. You might hear an ad.
When your destination is discovery, there are no wrong turns. That's why, at its very core, the new 2025 Lincoln Aviator SUV provides momentum beyond mere transportation. In this thoughtfully crafted and confidence-inspiring SUV, your destination is not about where you can go, but who you can be. Explore more at Lincoln.com. Lincoln and Aviator trademarks of Ford or its affiliates.
Okay, spoilers now for The Apprentice and Donald Trump's life. So, the things I'm referring to that kind of bugged me were the scene with the political guy, I can't remember whose name it was, who's in Reagan's administration, and he's talking to Trump, and he's like, do you know what, you should get into politics. And you know, oh hey, we've got this great campaign slogan. Do you want to hear it? It's called Make America Great Again. And you know, wouldn't it be great if you were a president? It's just like that conversation was absurd. And
yeah, but you know, for the purposes of a movie like this, they have to take various things that did happen and like bring them together in one scene to make it work.
Sure, fine, but this movie would be improved without that. We know where he ends up. We don't need that.
I want that scene in the movie because there are people who legitimately think Donald Trump is an original person and came up with any of that. And I like to see what this film proves to us, which we knew, but many people don't know for some reason, that Donald Trump is a phony and everything he says is a lie and every opinion he has he's co-opted from someone else.
Yes.
And I like that this film just reinforced that point over and over again. He's a liar, he's full of shit, and he's co-opting other people's work.
Okay, fine, I will accept your argument that this would work and maybe needs to work on the lowest common denominator. But for me as a viewing experience, I find that very frustrating. That's my perspective.
I actually enjoyed that scene.
And the other one, what was the other one which drove me nuts?
Can't have driven you too nuts because you've forgotten it now.
I can't think of it. Oh my god, There was another one which drove me nuts. Anyway, you go anyway, and I'll try and think about it. What do you want to talk about?
I find it very interesting how Donald Trump kind of shifted throughout this movie, in that at the beginning they almost present him as like quite naive and a bit of a like ingenue boy from a small town coming to the big city learning the ways of the world, which I find an interesting portrayal. I don't know what that's based on, but I did find it interesting. And specifically the relationship with his wife, Ivana, his first wife. Kind of when he first meets her, it's almost like he sees himself as a like Mr. Big type figure. You know, he's paying for her food and he's collecting her in a limo and he's sending all these flowers to her, and he's very much interested in conquering her, I guess, and marrying her. And this is, I already gave a trigger warning, but I'm going to give another trigger warning now. There's a very disturbing scene in the film. This scene is based from a statement that she gave in 1989, I believe, in a divorce filing, whereby she said that Donald Trump raped her one night and when they were married, and they depict that in this film. And I feel like that point in the film is used to demonstrate when he's like broken bad, basically. We know now from real life that many other women have called him out for sexual assault, and he himself has admitted that he grabs women by the pussy. So he is a known sexual predator, and he was known to be one before he was ever nominated to be president of the United States, which is incredibly disturbing. I'm glad the film showed that scene, and I'm glad the film showed us that. I think that's really important to remind people, because it almost became kind of background noise. You know, like before the campaign that he won in back against Hillary Clinton, that grab her by the pussy thing, everyone said, oh, that's going to be the nail in the coffin of his campaign, and it wasn't. And it just showed like how many people don't care.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad the film had it in, even though it was very distressing, and I feel absolutely terrible for that woman that she was married to him, and she passed away a couple of years ago. She since later on kind of revoked the use of the word rape a couple of years after she said it, and just said that it was a very kind of awful and degrading experience for her, but she doesn't use rape in the criminal term. She said some very ambiguous language. which read to me like somebody who's trying to just walk it back a bit because no doubt it's the father
For
of her
whatever
children
reason.
and it's in the public domain and she just doesn't want to talk about it, which, you know, I understand. So I thought that scene was really powerful. The other stuff around his brother was very powerful. So his brother has addiction issues. His brother, you know, we don't know. There's bits of this now where we'd have no idea if this is true, where his brother shows up, asks him for help. Donald doesn't give it to him. He gives him money to get rid of him. The brother dies a few days later. That, I have no idea if that's true. The only fact checking I could find on that was, his brother did have an alcohol problem and did die in his early 40s.
Which is very sad.
That side
I didn't know Donald Trump was a teetotaler.
I knew that, yeah. Because one of the eye-rolling things Kamala Harris does is she went onto a chat show and like drank a beer. And it was kind of like,
cringe.
ooh, well, she drinks and he doesn't. It's like, okay, I actually think I'm not teetotal, but I really respect it. If indeed he is, because then this, of course, film had him completely addicted to amphetamines and diet pills, which in fairness, I think a lot of people might have been in the 80s.
But they made him out to be such an idiot, because in that scene with the doctor, where he's like, the doctor's like, you need to come off them immediately. You're just taking amphetamines every day. And he's like, no, vitamins, good for your health. And it was just like, it was like a callback to the pandemic days of him saying you kill it with light and bleach.
You
where he's like,
all into your
exercise is bad for your body is one of the things he says to the doctor in this movie.
He probably
like,
used to go around saying that
you
stuff.
only have a reserve of energy. And it's
Anyway,
like, while
there's
he's
a lot
putting
of-
on weight.
There's a lot of evidence to suggest he was taking a lot of diet pills in the 80s.
Yeah.
So they're the scenes I wanted to call out as I think being kind of particularly significant. And just, the stuff I enjoyed is like the business stuff in the 80s and trying to get loans and going to court and trying to not pay taxes and all that kind of stuff. Like there's some of it where you can't help yourself but root for him because it's kind of fun that he's trying to build this big hotel.
But then the movie, yes, to a point, I think, but then we get caught up in that, and then the movie's good at reminding you, the audience, that, it's like, I think particularly in that court scene where Cohen is trying to get him off on that 40-year tax abatement for the Commodore Hotel, and then he blackmails the one of the chairman of the council. But the film, at that point, you're like, as you say, you, the audience, are kind of like, you're kind of rooting for him to a point, and then the film reminds you. But then the film reminds you, very much so in that moment. No, wait, that is at the expense of the city of New York, who will miss out on hundreds of millions in revenue, and the actual working class people who will miss out on that additional investment. So you're robbing from other services and programs in order to build this hotel, which is clearly illustrated.
The film also illustrates really darkly that your man Cohen was gathering dirt on people, blackmailing people.
Yeah.
And then he, in this really dark scene where they're cutting back and forth to him kind of mentoring Trump, is like, actually, in order for me to save democracy and serve America, I have to circumvent the democratic process and like blackmail people, but it's all to the end of being good for democracy. So it's like the seeds of that stuff where like, I can go around the system because I'm doing the right thing, and how you can justify your own corrupt actions by claiming you've like a higher goal when you don't.
And a lot of that does, naturally, I think the film is saying that is the playing into the person we know now, and that's a lot of it. It's a lot of the same rhetoric that's used in his political campaigning.
Like never accept defeat.
But the 3 rules in particular, I thought were quite neat narrative constructions. But we looked it up, and those were documented and attributed to Roy Cohn, and must be, I would imagine, in The Art of the Deal. That was the other thing that drove me nuts, when he's meeting the writer. We didn't need that scene either. And then that's like the scene in every musical biopic where they say, wait, stop, play that chord again. What was that you just said? And it's like, he's like, what are we going to call the book? I don't know, I can't think of any good names, but I just want to be like Leonardo da Vinci. That's how much I love deals. Wait a second, say that again. What about The Art of the Deal? I was like, fuck off.
See, I don't mind
That's
that stuff.
That's a terrible scene.
That's just a taste thing. Like, I don't mind that. I
do mind that. That's fucking hack level stuff.
A famous book he wrote, and they wanted to bring together in a key moment the absolute bullshittery of Donald Trump, just aping and repeating other things people have said, including like that conversation whether or not it happened with Andy Warhol.
No, I get it. I like that it hammers home that he now has adopted those 3 rules, and he's put his own twist on them and does no acknowledgement to Cohen. Right? I like that they hammered home that point, but all the stuff around it was dreadful. Anyway, the movie's very much saying, Trump is the Apprentice. It's a clever title to this guy Cohn.
Very clever
Another
title.
monster as you said, from another generation.
And who was like McCarthy's right hand man.
Exactly, like was part of the communist witch trials, speaks openly about like his remorse that he couldn't get a mother of two executed. You know, just an absolute monster. But Trump out-monsters him by then cutting ties to him.
But what's fascinating about this character, and they really kind of made it very clear for us that he was gay, and coming into the time period that it was, we were like, oh wait, is he gonna have AIDS? He did. And I think what the film showed us,
never publicly proven, he denied it till the end, right?
He denied it till the end, but
it's
he did
heavily
have it,
implied,
and his partner
right?
had it.
Yeah.
And he said he had liver cancer. And because, of course, you know, it was such a homophobic world that to admit it was like a death sentence in and of itself to a man like him. What's really sad they show us in the film is that he's blackmailing other men who are gay.
I know.
Like, he has no, like when he gets very ill and his boyfriend dies and he's down and out and him and Trump's treating him awfully, I still didn't feel sympathy for him. I felt empathy, but I thought, but you'd have done the same. So just because you're now down and out, that doesn't make you a good person. It's just like I was saying earlier, they're on different axes of like how bad they were.
No, and I don't think the film's trying to forgive him, and I don't think as an audience member you should forgive him, or that we feel forgiveness necessarily. But he's clearly displaying remorse. I think that's what they're expressing in that birthday scene, which is a great scene.
It was so ominous.
So ominous, and that score is fantastic there. When that birthday cake comes out with the American flag and he's staring at it and he bursts into tears, like that's a man at the end of his life realizing that he has nothing, and his whole philosophy was for this flag, and that it's disgusting. And I'm not sure if he's having these moments because it's not expressed out loud, but to me that is another thing the movie's saying, that the ultra patriotism and democracy and capitalism gone like rotten to its core are incredibly corruptible philosophies that result in where we are now, where wealth disparity is through the roof in that country, where what's interesting is the movie starts specifically by having a line of dialogue where Donald Trump says to the woman he's with, see that man over there, when they're in that exclusive club, that is one of the 2 billionaires in the United States. 2 billionaires. Where are we now? Where are we up to?
Yeah.
Like we're in the dozens and dozens, like in the hundreds even. So like the rich have gotten richer playing by this playbook that has been rolled out. Like this basically is, like this movie is, you know,
it's like Wall
toxic
Street.
Alpha male get rich quick masculinity, how to beat the system. Like here's the playbook. Like this is a guy that invented that in the 50s, was incredibly successful at doing it, taught someone else how to do it, and they did it successfully by gaming the system and continue to do it.
It's interesting
at
when
the
he starts,
expense of real people who are suffering.
The other thing they showed is that like Donald Trump doesn't take advice, and that's like well acknowledged about him, or he's very reluctant to take advice, and which is why so many of his advisors like quit in the White House. But he as his trajectory goes up, he stops listening to Cohn, and Cohn's giving him really good advice, like you've overextended yourself, stop building new hotels. And like we know that Donald Trump's had a series of business failures as well. Like it's a bit of a myth that he's a successful
He's been bankrupted several times.
Yeah, like he used his dad's money and he lost loads of money, so it is definitely a myth that he's like this incredible businessman, and it annoys me so much that people buy into it. Like when you look at the stuff he's doing at the moment where he's selling like gold photos of himself in crypto with his name on it, and just any scam he can get his hands on really, and people are paying for that shit, and like gold watches with his name on it that have numbers in the back of them and all this kind of stuff. But
he's so tacky as well.
What
a tacky thing to do for somebody who's running for president and
but
was
he is
president.
tacky. Like even your man Cohen was like in the casinos with him, and he's like, this is terrible, like why are you putting your money in here? And he's like, he just wants to get all these grannies money as they gamble, like, and they want to give them free food so they'll stay in the casino so they'll like lose more money. So that stuff's all fascinating as well. So overall it's a fascinating film. I hugely recommend it. I commend the journalists who wrote it, and they worked so hard to get this film released. The Trump team couldn't get it banned because they were saying it was all made up, and it isn't all made up. There's a
It
few
seems-
pieces that have been dramatised, but the core facts are all verifiable.
Yeah, and it seems like they've kind of done their work here and they've done
Yeah.
their homework. So yeah, I think kudos to everyone involved and the production and the cast. It's it's a good film.
And it's just two
Um,
amazing central performances. Like, and I think for particularly for anyone playing Donald Trump, and you referenced obviously
Alec Baldwin.
Alec Baldwin, the stuff for SNL that he did last time. Obviously, they're not using him this time. But it's so easy to lampoon someone like Trump, but I think the actor's slow descent into Trump was incredible.
Yeah.
He looks so like Trump. I'd say there's a few prosthetics involved and obviously a wig, but like not that much. He's just a really good actor, and he's able to hold himself a certain way, move himself a certain way. It's incredible.
It's a great performance, and he literally has the Darth Vader transformation scene moment where he gets the surgery and becomes
Oh my God.
becomes the villain.
I love that they got in, and again, this has been claimed by his wife in divorce proceedings, Ivana, his first wife, that he got liposuction. He got this scalp thing done where his scalp was all tightened, and it gave him all these awful headaches and made him act really like angry and stuff. But I love that they showed him getting the lipo and the hair stuff because he's one of the vainest men in the world.
Yeah.
And I genuinely feel like he'd be more angry to see himself getting liposuction on screen than he would be to be seen raping his wife. Like, I truly believe that.
Yeah, probably.
Anyway, thank you everyone for listening. Let us know what you thought about The Apprentice. Did you see it? I know it has a limited run, but I hope you did. And come over to patreon.com/thecinema to check out all our retro TV and movie stuff. And finally, if you could give us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, would be really grateful because we need those.
Yes, please. And if you want to talk to us in any other forum, you can do it on Instagram, Letterboxd, YouTube, or email us, thecinemile
And TikTok.
gmail.com, and TikTok. We're at the Cinemile on all those
We
things.
gave up on Twitter, by the way, just in case anyone's wondering. According to Anthony Scaramucci, the Twitter algorithm has literally been tweaked to be pro-Trump now, which I
fantastic.
fully believe is true.
Yeah.
Anyway, we ain't there, but we're on all the other ones instead.
Great. I'm going to go home and have a shower now because that's how I feel after watching that movie. So thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
What if you lost your fortune today?
Well, then maybe I'll run for president. I don't know.
I say, if you're indicted, you're invited.